The Swan Valley is a slice of Montana, a wonderful, inspiring place. Inspiring not only to visitors who come and look and take photographs, it's inspiring for the artistic types, the writers, the cinematographers, the painters, the sculptors.
Nestled between the Bob Marshall and the Mission Mountain Wilderness in western Montana, the Swan Valley was for centuries quietly occupied by the Salish and Pend Oreille people. These Native Americans came to the valley in search of native plants, fish, elk, and deer to see them through the long winters back home. By the mid-1800s, stories about the valley's riches began to spread to the Midwest, thanks to beaver trappers and prospectors. Although they never found gold here, they shared tales of an equally valuable commodity: adventure. By the 1900s, the Swan Valley drew entrepreneurs seeking an authentic Western lifestyle, and these self-made men and women built dude ranches and lodges to draw the rich and powerful. Almost 100 years later, these lodges still exist, along with the stories they hold. Recently, former Wranglers, dudes, and owners of 3 of the Swan Valley's historic lodges recalled this early history, as they did here at the Gordon Ranch. The Gordon Ranch was built in 1904 by Dr. R.R. Gordon, the personal physician to William Clark, Montana's Copper King. Close by lies Holland Lake Lodge, first built in 1924, then rebuilt in 1947 after a fire destroyed the lodge. Holland Lake Lodge still operates today and remains a jumping-off point for outfitters into the Bob Marshall Wilderness. And in 1926, a former Idaho steamboat captain and his wife, Cap and Tyne Laird, started looking for the ideal location for their lodge, and that location was the Swan Valley's Elbow Lake.
Tyne had this white hair. Cap looked like a true Western outdoorsman, and he was. He was extremely knowledgeable about the woods and everything about the outdoors, building and lumbering and that kind of thing. He'd been a boat captain on Coeur d'Alene.
They had an old trapper acquaintance of theirs, and he listened to them as they thought about where is there a place where we can go where it's the land chuck full of hush. But there was also some other caveats that were necessary. A fishing stream, lakes, good mountains, and lots of game, because Cap was a hunter.
The story goes that soon after Cap and Tyne bought the property on Elbow Lake, Tyne saw Charles Lindbergh flying overhead in his plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, fresh after his historic transatlantic trip, and she waved her dish towel at the plane. He soon backtracked to take a break at this beautiful lake.
They were building it, just getting started really, and had a tent camp in 1927 when Lindbergh came on. He was a national hero. He didn't get much building done during the time that Lindbergh was here because they got to be real good friends, had a lot of visiting. They shot trap together.
Following that historic visit, Elbow Lake was renamed Lindbergh Lake. Bill Reynolds first saw Laird's Lodge in 1936.
How did I get here? Well, I was 6 years old, in the first grade, just finished first grade. My dad was a struggling dentist. He just started in 1934 in Missoula, the depths of the Depression, and he didn't have any money, and the Lairds didn't have any money, and they came in with a toothache, and he took care of them. And they worked out an arrangement that he would take care of their crew here. And in return, we got 1 week each summer here at the lodge as guests, and it was wonderful. It was an adventure actually getting here. And we were getting very anxious, but when we saw the sign that said a hoop and a holler to Laird's Lodge, we knew we were just about there. This was wilderness at that point, it really was. There were Gordon Ranch, I think, was the nearest habitation over by Holland. They're never-ending, exciting things to do. Horseback riding every day, and you could ride as 9 miles to Glacier Lake, great fishing. And so that was pretty much an all-day trip. Ride around locally or up to Elbow Lookout. The man running the lookout was always happy to see us. And you caught fish and they cooked them for you at breakfast. Then we had a lovely dinner every night, and all the guests would eat family style.
World War II saw a drop in visitors, and in 1943, Cap Laird died of a heart attack while checking his trap line. But the end of the war also brought a new chapter for Laird's Lodge. In 1945, Dick Hickey heard from an old college friend, Ross Greening, an American aviator who had just been released from 3 years in a German prison camp. Now freed, he called his best friend and asked him to find a hideaway to get reacquainted with his wife and reintegrated into civilian life. Dick Hickey's daughter, Sharon McQuarrie, reads from her father's letter.
The next morning, we headed up the Blackfoot past Seeley Lake and into the Swan Valley and finally arrived at Laird's Lodge on Lindbergh Lake. Our friends, Ross and Dot, were in seventh heaven. The fishing was great, and she was a wonderful fisherwoman. The days slipped by all too fast. To me, this spot was the ultimate resort location. Between us, we decided to ask Mrs. Laird if the place was for sale. It was. And that night, there, Ross and myself agreed between us how we would be able to buy Laird's Lodge.
The new owners, the Hickeys and the Greenings, renamed the lodge the Diamond El Bar after the Laird's brand.
What was our life like? Magnificent. I lived here till I was 16, and every year was special. Every season was special. We never traveled. We didn't have to, because we were allowed to be part of the lives, and our parents saw to it that we were part of the conversations of the world that came here.
By the 1960s, the Diamond El Bar clients had expanded their travel choices to include Europe and beyond, and the ranch responded to these new realities.
It changed quite dramatically. It went from a full inclusive dude ranch to housekeeping cabins, because the world was changing then. But the spirit of this place is still evident today, because here we are gathered like every night during the dude season and even during hunting season. We would be gathered in this room, and folks just like you would be sitting here with us. Somebody would be beating on the piano. Conversation was very important. There was no television. We really got to know each other.
After 24 years of catering to big city dudes, the Hickeys sold the ranch and its considerable acreage in 1967. The Diamond El Bar went through several owners until 1977, when the lodge and cabins went on the market separately. That year, the Ukrainians family purchased the lodge property and renamed it the Lindbergh Lake Lodge.
Our family was the first generation of private ownership of any one of the buildings around here, because every family before us owned the entire facility.
In 1985, Ron moved to the lodge permanently and began to paint full-time.
I'm not ashamed to tell you that I'm here because of the wonderful, I guess you'd say, properties of bear spray. Did you know that Lindbergh Lake does have a classification for bear travel? It's a Class B1 corridor. Class B being residential, Class 1 being the highest traffic area. Did you know that? Neither did I. That's why there was a bear spray in everything that I owned and in my back pocket at all times. The one thing that I can say is that inspiration drives culture. And without inspiration, you'd have no culture. And culture is what defines and forms an area or a community. And be it on a small scale with a Saturday morning group getting together for coffee, a community art show, a quilting bee. That's part of the culture of the community. And that's why the Swan Valley, and this area in particular, is rich and rife with inspiration. And it's a very, very important thing to treasure and to keep forever.